Hi everybody, it's Christy Forsyth with Clarity by Christy, and this is class 5 in our Finding Your Magic series. So thank you guys, first of all, again, for your patience through this whole process, for your patience with just things being a little bit different than the original intended schedule. And I always trust, like I said, and we're going to talk about faith and trust and all of that today, but I trust that things work out as they should. And so I imagine that these topics are hitting you right at the right time, and that you're getting the messages through these videos at exactly the right time for you, where you're at in your life. And so I just try to trust that and to honor that things work out just as they should. And I think that most of you do as well and are learning. Let me just adjust this. This seems a little crooked. But thank you guys for your flexibility and for your understanding and all of that. I really, really appreciate it. And I've been having such a good time with this class. I hope you guys are enjoying the cards and the hypnosis recordings and things like that. Let me know. Have any of those been really helpful for you? We're going to talk a little bit about spirit guides today and angels. And I know I posted the connecting with your angels hypnosis, and that can help you to connect with your angels, with your guides, whatever it is that you're intending to connect with, or both, with your spirit team. So we're going to dive into that, but we're going to talk about faith and all of these things as well. But let me know what you guys are thinking about those, and how are the daily card pulls? You know, even if you're not sharing how you connected with the cards or what it means for you, because I know some of us are more private, and that's a really personal thing. You know, are you getting messages from those? Are those connecting for you, and all of these things? And feel free to share in the group what's going on with it. I would love to have a week 5 progress update from you guys, whether it's under this video, whether it is listed somewhere on the wall here, whatever you feel comfortable, whatever you like sharing. I would love to hear that from you guys. So let's see. We're going to pull some cards for today. Messages for you guys. Okay. So the first card is the Ark of the Covenant reverse. Okay, so the Ark of the Covenant is basically a card that connects with our soul contracts. So basically what we had intended for this life, things that we had intended for this life, things that we had wanted to experience, and also us living in our highest and best purpose. And so when we have the Ark of Covenant reversed, it's a little like maybe you've stepped away a little bit. Maybe you've been a little distracted from your life purpose. Maybe you have allowed distractions to pull you away from that. Maybe you have allowed fear and worry to pull you away from that. Maybe you've just been so busy that you felt disconnected from your spirituality. So it's funny, we're like talking about spirituality and faith and all of that today, because maybe you felt a little disconnected from all of that lately. This Mercury retrograde energy is thick, and I hope you guys catch my other videos that I've been sharing this week. I've been trying to do more videos, and you know, it's a tough energy, so it's helpful for us to connect with our faith and to be working on some of these things that I'm going to be talking about to get us through Mercury retrograde. So making sure that you are just honoring that life purpose and what you're feeling with that. So let's pull another card. Let's see. Oh, 4 of Scrolls. The Karmic Trench. Okay. So the Karmic Trench, again, is like, this is a little bit of a stuck energy, right? We're feeling stuck in old karma. We're feeling stuck in old habits, in old cycles, in old patterns. Maybe old patterns are showing up for us as we're in this retrograde energy. Old stuff tends to come around. And so maybe we're feeling kind of stuck right now, and like things are just the exact same as they were in the past. And this is where it's just really important for you to be mindful of that and to take action on moving yourself out of that, because when you decide that you're making some changes happen. Let's see. One more. Oh, the Willow Tree. So I think this is Willow Tree reverse. We're having a tough time with this energy this week, guys. And so the willow tree reverse is kind of saying, like, when you think about a willow tree and its branches, like, the branches are very flexible. They go with the flow. They flow with the wind. Hi, Rachel. Glad you're catching me live. And so the branches are flowing, you know. They go with the wind. And this is how willow trees withstand heavy, heavy winds in really difficult conditions, is they flow. They bend, they go with the breeze. And so can we bend a little bit? Can we be flexible with some of these unexpected things that are showing up for us, and trusting that those are for our highest and best good, but also just letting ourselves be flexible, not being so stubborn that we don't actually, that we allow it to break us. So we don't want that. Yeah, Rachel says she never catches it live. I know, because I do it at such random times. I've been just kind of fitting it in. And so, yeah, I think it's been hard for people to catch it live, but I'm glad that you guys are catching the replays, and I hope that you're watching them. But those are your cards for this class. Next class will be our last class with this. So I would love to hear from you guys, what's sort of left over for you, and what you're wanting and needing to have worked into that last class with things, because I'm happy to create and make this whatever it is that you're wanting. But again, I'd love to hear week 5 check-ins, where you're at, how you're doing with things, how you're feeling. Again, you might feel a little fuzzy sort of right now, a little cloudy, having a hard time seeing clearly, but I want you to acknowledge your progress and look at it and really see it for what it is. So I feel like that check-in is important. So today we're going to talk about deepening our connection with our faith, and I will post the handouts for this, but I want to just talk about, I'm going to share some ideas with you, and I want you guys to keep in mind, like, these are influenced, of course, by my own faith, by my own spirituality. And so with anything spiritual, I always just say, like, take what speaks to you and leave the rest. You don't have to buy into any of this stuff. If anything that I say to you feels not correct, then it probably isn't correct for you, because I feel like spirituality is such a very personal and individual process, and your beliefs are going to be different from my beliefs, and all of us, if we were to like talk about what we believed, we're going to all have some differences. And that's like the real beauty of it, is we're all on a spiritual journey, and we're all exploring that, and we're going to be in different places with that, and we're going to have different beliefs based on our experiences, based on who we are, all of these things. And so we just want to honor that, and I honor that with you guys. So as I'm talking about things, understanding that I'm sharing and shaping some things, but I also honor where you're coming from. So if it doesn't speak to you, take what speaks to you. I really think that just honoring your opinions is what's most important. And what I want you to do is step away from this and ask yourself, what are my beliefs? What do I believe? And really allow yourself, and this is a great homework assignment, but to just kind of let these thoughts and ideas roll around in your head, asking yourself some pretty big spiritual questions, and allow this class to start to trigger whatever those questions are, because it's like, I can give you some questions, but I think at the end of the day, your questions that come from this are the most important ones to follow, because I think a spiritual journey is always questioning. It's always asking, okay, what now? What now? Okay, so this is what I believe, but what about this? And what about this? And this is how we're constantly shaping what we believe. And ideally, in my opinion, we don't want to get stuck in, these are my beliefs, this is how it is, period, the end, and that never expands, it never is explored, it's never challenged. I personally believe that God or the universe or whatever you call that can totally handle you challenging things and exploring things and asking questions. I mean, if God can't handle it, who can, right? And I think that, like, our spiritual journey is such an important one, and it's some of the things that we have intended for ourselves to experience in this life. So sorry, I'm distracted because somebody's out in the other room talking out in the waiting room, and it distracted me. But we're experiencing these things, and we're on a journey, and it is a journey. So let's keep that in mind, and let's honor that journey for ourselves, and let it be okay that we're asking questions. And I encourage questions. I think that that's so important. We want to be open to new ideas. So maybe you're raised, I was raised in the Christian church, and actually I had interesting experiences with it where I was like in several different types of Christian churches, so it shaped me in different ways. But for me, I kind of stepped away from some of those things. Some of those things have created a foundation for me in my belief, but they're not, I don't just like buy into everything that the Bible says or that I learned in church. I have a lot of flexibility with that because I've kind of like taken ideas from different places that speak to me. I've taken ideas from Buddhism. I've taken, like from spiritualism, all different types of religions and just spiritual beliefs, and I've kind of brought them together to create my own personal beliefs. And this is what I operate from, what feels right and true for me. So we're all going to have our own religion, really. And some of us might align in different ways, but be open to new ideas. Be open when your friends are sharing things, so that, because you might take a look at that and go, you know what? That just makes a whole lot of sense. And by the way, that idea brings me a ton of peace, a ton of joy. Because I think a lot of times, again, this is just my belief, but that spirituality is meant to bring us peace and comfort and joy. I don't believe that true spirituality comes from a place of fear, and I think that was created by man. And so in these texts, when you start to move into a fear-based energy, and when it starts to be like, you can't do this and you can't do that and all of that, I just personally don't believe that. I believe that God is love, and that anything that comes from God and of God is simply pure love, and that we are an extension of God's love, and that we are receiving God's love no matter what, no matter who we are, no matter what we're doing, we just are receiving that. And the more we can just allow ourselves to receive that love, the better. And so many of us, and I would love to hear some of the things that you guys have been fear-based about, based on your religious experiences. I would love to hear about that. I'll give you guys a personal example. So for me, when I was a kid, my mom really struggled with mental health issues, and there were several times that she had attempted to take her life. And one of the things that would come up in the Bible or would come up in church was like this idea that if you commit suicide, you're going to go to hell. And so as a child, even I questioned that. I could feel that. I was like, but that was something that people said, and so it did bring me a lot of fear. But even as a child, I started to sort of explore that idea and think, like, what do I really think about this? I know that the grown-ups are saying this, but what do I really feel about this? And I let myself explore that idea, and from a pretty young age, recognize that I didn't believe that to be true, and what I saw was a human being who was suffering so much and in a lot of pain, and I just didn't believe that God would send her to a place. She never successfully committed suicide, thank God, and has done a lot of work on herself and moved forward. But had that happened, I don't believe that she would have gone to hell. I actually kind of believe that this is hell in a lot of ways, and what they were talking about when they said hell. But anyway, that brought me a lot of fear to think about, well, what if she does this again, and what if she goes to hell? And it brought me a lot of peace when I worked through that way of thinking. And so what are some of the old concepts, old ideas that maybe you're hanging on to that don't really connect for you anymore, that don't click for you, that don't honor who you are and what you feel and what feels right to your soul? Listen to your soul, listen to your heart, listen to, like, does this feel like love or does this feel like fear? Because chances are, if it feels like fear, that doesn't come from God, in my opinion. So just kind of exploring some of the ideas and asking those questions. I think when we're wanting to deepen our faith, it is helpful to explore spiritual texts. And with that, we very much want to approach it again with take what speaks to you and leave the rest, because there will be things that feel very heavy, that feel very fear-based. One of my all-time favorite spiritual text, well, it is my all-time favorite spiritual text, is A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It looks very much like a Bible. It's very, has like those soft pages like a Bible. It's very loaded with words. Every word is incredibly meaningful, and because it's meant to be a channeled text. But the whole concept of that just really, really aligns for me, because it is based on this idea that everything is love, and that miracles are available to us every day. And there's just so many beautiful, beautiful concepts in that. And I really encourage you guys, if that connects for you while I'm speaking about this, that you pick up that. Has anybody here read A Course in Miracles? I would love to hear if you've started that. I have not finished that completely, because it's quite a book, but I've made my way through it. And sometimes I like to just pull it off the shelf and open it to a page and see what messages it has for me. That's a really powerful experience for me. I think as human beings, it's so important that we pay attention to all aspects of ourselves. So we want to take care of ourselves physically. We want to take care of ourselves emotionally, psychologically. We want to make sure that we spend time with people, because we're social beings, right? So we want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves socially as well. But we also want to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves spiritually. Have you ever met somebody who's very disconnected from their spirituality, and how are they doing? Probably chances are they're not doing really well. And even if they seem like they're doing pretty well on the outside, I've never met somebody who's disconnected from their spirituality that seems wildly happy, in a really, truly genuine way. So that's just something to think about. I think that spirituality can bring us joy and peace in so many ways. So it's really incredible. So how do we connect with our higher power? And I think that starts with connecting often and regularly, making it part of your life, making it, if you're somebody who, I talked about taking care of all of you, if you're taking care of yourself physically, how do you take care of yourself spiritually? How do you, if you're taking care of yourself physically and you're working out every single day or consistently throughout the week, how are you taking care of yourself spiritually, and how are you honoring that part of yourself? Where do you connect? Do you connect in a church? Do you connect in some type of a spiritual gathering? I always say that my church is the woods, or on the beach. Anything in nature, I just feel really connected to my spirituality. If you're not feeling connected to your spirituality or your faith, go outside and look at the sky. It is nearly impossible, especially after looking at the sky for a few minutes, to feel disconnected from source, God, the universe, whatever that is, and to feel disconnected from the big picture. I promise you, if you do that, it will make a difference for you. I have on my phone, it just says look up on the wallpaper, because I just like that reminder, like when all else fails, just look up and look at the sky and look at the clouds, or look at the stars, look at the rainbows in the sky, whatever it is, but just take a few minutes to look up, because something physiologically happens for us and something spiritually happens for us when we take the time to just peacefully, easily, quietly look at the sky. So I really encourage you to try it and do it. And the more you can do that and the more regularly you can do that, the better off you'll be, the better off you're going to feel physically, mentally, emotionally. So it's really, really important, and probably the biggest takeaway that I want you to take from this class actually is to take that time to look at the sky, to connect, because this is just where people feel most connected. When you're interacting with people, when you're having deep conversations, when you're having not so deep conversations, but you're having a great time and you're laughing, that's where I feel God. Where do you feel God? When I'm hanging out with cute little fuzzy animals, I feel God. I love animals. I love just having cuddle time with them. Like, that feels like God to me. When we're meditating, oh my gosh, like we've been talking about meditation. Have you been meditating more in this class? We're 5 weeks in, more than 5 weeks in now. And have you adopted a meditation routine? That will change your life. If you haven't, do it, because it's really important. And just asking yourself, where do I feel God? Like, where do I connect with God? And it might be some interesting, strange place or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's about where you connect with God, where you feel God most, where, maybe it's when you just have some downtime at work, or when you're doing something creative, or you're doing something that's a little mundane, and you get into a flow with things, and that's where you feel God. It's wherever you feel God, but it's about connecting and taking that time to connect and having that time to connect. And then as we're working on deepening the faith, we've talked about asking for signs, and working with the universe throughout your day to feel connected all day long. So I have this awesome friend who pretty consistently will go, what signs did you receive today? And most of the time I can say, most of the time it's almost hard for me to answer because I work so consistently and regularly with the universe at this point that I almost don't even consciously pause sometimes, unless it's a bigger sign, or a sign that seems to be more. But she'll ask that, and there have been on occasion times that I've been like, oh, I don't know that I've noticed one sign today. I don't know that I've taken a pause and acknowledged and honored that. And you should be getting signs every day if you're really paying attention, and feel connected every day and intending to connect every day. And you might not always notice them, and that's okay. That it's not that you're doing it wrong. But there are times when I'm like, whoa, I'm really disconnected spiritually today. So you want to just keep yourself in check, and I think that that's a really nice way to do that. When we're working on connecting with our faith, we want to work on surrender, right? That is huge, and that's not always something that comes right away. I can't tell you guys how many times I have worked on that and had to work on that and had to surrender. It's over and over and over again, because I have this tendency to want to control things. It's kind of part of who I am. I feel like I've learned a lot about things with that, particularly with Sawyer being in the hospital. That really helped me to work on a whole new level of surrender. But we want to work on that surrender, because when you can get to that place where you say, you know what, God, universe, whatever, I hand this to you. I don't know what to do with it. So sometimes we have to actually get to that point where we're feeling like we're breaking a little bit before we say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm going to choose to hand this over to you. So here you go. And then when that thought comes in, when you start to notice that you're trying to control it, hand it back over, because I just say it's always best in God's hands. There is nothing that you can do that God can't do better. And so even if you get really good at this surrender stuff, and you choose to not hand this over until later on, maybe you choose, or maybe sorry, I got off track. Maybe you get so good at this surrender stuff that you actually choose to hand this over earlier on, is what I meant to say. So you choose relatively early in the process. You catch yourself trying to control something, and you say, I'm going to hand this over. I don't know what to do. I'm going to trust. And that's been kind of where I've been at, is trying to surrender it earlier, trying to just flow with what's showing up for me. Flow is huge in terms of spirituality, because flowing with what's showing up for you means that you're releasing control, that you're not trying to control things. We talked about being in the river or being on the riverbank. When you're in flow, you are in the river. When you are in trust, when you are in your faith, you are in the river, and anytime that you surrender, it's climbing back into that river. So working on that, you might have to do it several times. There have been times that I'm like, okay, I'm handing this over, and then 2 minutes later, I'm worrying about it again and trying to find a solution and trying to control it. No. Whenever you can, recognize it again and say, whoops, there it is, I'm trying to control it again. Again, I hand it over, and I've had to do it 8 times over the course of an hour before, it's okay if you have to keep handing it over, but eventually your brain will go, oh, okay, so we're letting this go now. We're choosing to let this go, and it will let it go. But you have to kind of keep doing it to retrain your brain that you're working on that. So let's see, what else? Surrender, release control, like I said. We want to work on allowing divine timing as well, because sometimes we get stuck in that, why isn't this happening for me? Why, or I've been asking for this for so long, it is not happening. Why not? And I think that it's really important to consider this concept of divine timing, and that everything happens in perfect divine timing and order. And this is ruled by our higher power. And we don't have the big picture like God does. God has the big picture. God knows when to time things, and how many, you can even think back to experiences where something happened in a different timing than you had wanted, and then you're like, well, thank God it happened that way. Or if it didn't happen this way, I wouldn't have met this person, I wouldn't have this experience, or whatever it is. But trusting in that divine timing, and trusting even if you don't understand it, and even if like you never understand it, even looking back with some perspective, understanding that God understands it and God has your back and is taking care of you always. That everything that's happening is for your highest and best good, always. And your guides and your angels, and we're going to dive into those, are always looking out for you, always taking care of you, and doing what is for your highest and best good. I can't tell you how many times that I have prayed and I've said, please help me with this. And then I've told God how I wanted him to help me with something. That doesn't really work very well. You know, you can set your intention, do that, you know, set an intention, but also say, but please do whatever is for my highest and best good. It's a really great way to give God a little bit of extra flexibility around that, so that he can really show you some miracles. Like, we think that we know what miracles can happen, but if you can step out of the way and let God take care of it, this is where the real miracles happen, and this is where your real power is. So allowing that to happen, allowing yourself to hand that over, to trust, and to trust in the big picture, even if it doesn't make sense to you. That trust is what our faith is, you know, saying, I'm choosing to trust even though I don't understand, even though I don't know. And that's a really beautiful energy to be in, when you're in that real trust and faith, and when you're saying, oh wow, like this Mercury retrograde is like a shit show, and this is really hard, but you know what, I'm choosing to trust that, like, even though it looks real bad today or right now, that this is for my highest and best good, for whatever reason, and for the people who are involved in this, for their highest and best good. And so just trusting, doing your best to trust. There's such great peace that comes with that. You know, and continuing to work on building that trusting relationship. We also want to have, well, I think that it's helpful anyway, to have some kind of a ritual, you know, to be able to pray consistently. I really like to do my prayers before I go to bed at night, and I like to do intention setting in the morning. And intention setting to me is just another form of prayer. So sometimes I say it as what I call prayer. Sometimes I say it as just direct intention setting. Sometimes I write it. So like, I have all different ways, but whatever I feel in the moment feels best and feels right. And just allowing that to happen for yourself is really important. Whatever feels best and whatever feels right. So praying, checking in with God. So that might be meditation, that might be prayer, that might be intention setting, but just like plugging in, checking in with God every single day is going to be really, really important. And then on special occasions, or even daily, having some type of rituals for yourself. I talked before about like my morning rituals, where, you know, I do my gratitude, and I do my thanking God, and please show me how to be of service today, and all of these things. I have these rituals, and I also just have meditation rituals, and rituals that I like to do with crystals, or bath rituals, things like that, that just help me feel connected to God, that help me to feel like I'm doing something either to honor God or to assist with the process that I'm asking for, all kinds of things. You can have altars set up that have things set out to honor your higher power, and that's a really great place to pray or meditate, or just to sit and reflect. So having rituals and things like that is really important. So I guess I want this conversation to just spark within you questions, and to encourage you to begin to connect on a deeper level with your faith, and to encourage you to think about, how can I incorporate my faith a little bit more each and every day into my life? How can I honor the spiritual part of myself? And one of the ways that we do that is by working with what I call our spirit team. So these are, I believe that we come here to earth. This is what I see when I do readings with people. I believe that when I come to earth, or that when we come to earth, that we have this team of personal angels that are just for us, Maybe we're working with some of the bigger angels, like the archangels, that kind of work with a little bit of everybody. Maybe we're working with what I call ascended masters. So that would be people like Buddha and Jesus and the Mother Mary, and you can tell I have a Christian background, but like any of these deities that we feel connected with, oftentimes I put into that category of that these are considered to be what I call ascended masters. So there are people who have mastered things in their life here on earth that and they have some important lessons or help and assistance in their crossing on the other side to help us with our life's purpose and our mission. So our angels, our ascended masters that are with us, and our crossed loved ones oftentimes are with us and part of a spirit team, and angels. Angels, or in spirit, I already said angels, and spirit guides. So spirit guides are, we'll dive into that a little bit, but specifically intended for staying with us through our life, or sometimes they switch out. Sometimes we have a spirit guide for a period of time and then they leave and we have a different one step in for a different phase of our life. But they are here to support us, to help us to live our best life path, to guide us to, when we're connecting intuitively, we're connecting with our spirit guides, we're connecting with what I believe is our higher self, our angels, all of these things. So they're helping with the process. You have a team that's cheering for you, that's supporting you, that's allowing you to not exist here on this earth alone. And how amazing is that, right? I think that that's really powerful. So let's talk about angels, my favorite topic, because angels are just something that I've seen, throughout my life, that I see with people, that I feel with people. They are my all-time favorite thing because I just see them as an extension of God's love, and that's what they feel like, is pure love. I've had a couple times when the angels have come through in a reading and they have said, I want you to tell them that they're about to experience what we feel like, that they're about to experience God's love, real love, true love. And so I tell them that, and then immediately they just feel this rush of, I don't have the words to describe what it feels like, but of love, of light, of peace, of calm, of joy that washes over them. And usually they get really emotional about that because they really feel it, and it's a life-changing experience for them. So it's a really beautiful thing. And so you can invite that experience into your life as well, and see what you experience. And it might be subtle, it might be really profound, but I promise you, if you set the intention and you invite it, you'll have some kind of an experience eventually with that. So that's a really beautiful thing. And I love for you to be able to feel what the angels' energy feels like, because you get a little, I don't always feel it in that strong of a way, but I feel the energy come in, and it's a really nice thing to experience. So once you start to recognize what it feels like, you can recognize it when an angel comes in. So we have our own personal angels with us at all times that are just for us, that have just come around to be here with us, to support us with our life. But because we have free will, and I think I've mentioned this before, but the angels can only help us if we ask for help. And so I'm going to just move this lighting because it feels so bright. It's too bright. Okay. So we need to ask for help when we need help from the angels, and then they can jump in and they can intervene. And I like to say that they help us in the way that we need, not always the way that we want, right? Like I was talking before, they will show up for us in that way, what's best for our highest and best good. So you might look at that and go, well, I have called on the angels, Christy, all week long, and they haven't done a goddamn thing, and that's not true. It's simply not true. But they're doing whatever it is that they need to do for your highest and best good. So sometimes that might be in alignment with exactly what you want, and sometimes it won't be. So this is why it feels like sometimes they're not helping, but they are. And we also have to invite that, and we have to allow it, So sometimes we are asking for that, but we're still a little bit closed off. So we want to just express our openness to the angels, and that we're open to receiving their help, and really thinking about being open with our energy fields and our heart centers. And sometimes that just comes through that thought and that intention. you can ask for signs from the angels. I mean, we've touched on that. I'm including that in the handouts, like asking for that, but we kind of have covered that quite a bit, the signs and synchronicities. So you can say, show me the way. And a lot of times for me, angels show up in the form of feathers. White feathers, but sometimes it's other feathers too. And I just find these feathers just at the right time when I'm needing that reminder, and it's a really beautiful thing. So I love when the feathers show up. I love all of that stuff. Sometimes they'll show up in the form of, like they say, pennies from heaven. So they might show up in the form of a penny on your path. Repeating numbers is another one. So is a huge one. So the angels really like repeating numbers. It's one of the ways that they choose to show us that we are safe and protected and loved. And so any type of a repeating number is an angel number and is a way to remind us that we are protected and loved. And you can look up online, what does 1111 mean? What does 555? And I know I covered this a bit before, but you can look that up as well and see what specific message it has for you. But any repeating number is really the message that the angels are with you and that they're here to help. So anytime that shows up, even if you don't look that up, you can know that that's the message, and you can start to learn what the other numbers mean. Again, you want to ask yourself from your frame of reference first, what does this mean to me? But then you can look that up if that feels right and correct for you to do. So angels come only with love. They are pure love, so they do not judge you. They do not get angry with you. They don't have emotion. They don't have ego. So, they don't get upset with us. So some people say, I think my angels have given up on me. Well, no, you have to ask for their help, for them to help you, but your angels never give up on you. I make the joke that my angels slap themselves in the forehead all the time. And I don't really think they do. They're just love. They're just ego. So they're just kind of like, okay, here we go again. But they're patiently waiting, even if you make the same mistake 20 times or 30 times. They're just there and present and love. And so there's not any judgment with that, because angels, people confuse angels with crossed loved ones. Crossed loved ones are not the same as angels. Crossed loved ones are people who have passed. Angels are an entirely different entity. They're like just a different energy. They are God's soldiers in a way, soldiers of love, not war. And so they haven't most of the time walked this earth. Now, are there on this planet right now, here on this earth, a lot of people who I consider to be earth angels? So angels who have decided to incarnate here on this earth? Yes, absolutely. I believe that to be true. I believe that there are a lot of people who are earth angels, who are very in tune with the angels, very connected to the angels, who are meant to be as close to an angelic presence here on this earth as they can be, but we have egos here on this earth, so they're not going to be a pure angel. But you'll meet people, you'll be able to recognize an earth angel because they just look angelic. They just look like somebody that you would like, and they have a nice face and a nice smile and just kind eyes and things like that. They look like an angel, or what you would imagine an angel to be. So, or they feel like an angel, they feel like love, they feel more understanding, more empathic, more kind, more loving, more compassionate than other people. So earth angels, I love the energy of earth angels because I love angels so much and connect with that. The function of angels is to help us with our spiritual and emotional needs. Basically, they're here to take care of us. They're here to help us while we're experiencing life on this planet, because it can be challenging, and God would never send us here without help, and so they're here to be one of our helpers, and to help us, so to protect us, to help us with things, to assist us on this life journey. One of my favorite things to do with the angels if I'm struggling is to ask the angels to rearrange my thinking, my thoughts, while I sleep. So I invite them to do that. So if I'm really struggling with something, before I go to bed, I'll just say, please rearrange my thoughts so that I can wake up with more clarity or more understanding. And I will tell you guys, more often than not, I really do. I really wake up like, whoa, I see this from a whole new perspective, or whoa, I know what the answer to my question is. And it's really, really cool to invite that in. There are different angels, like if we're talking like things like earth angels or not earth angels, archangels or seraphim angels. There's all kinds of different types of angels if you really dive into it, in my experience. But it doesn't really matter, so we've got our own guardian angels, we have personal angels, we have sometimes we have archangels, different things like that. But understanding that you don't have to know all the different types of angels, and I'm not going to dive in that deep with angels here, because the importance is that we're connecting with that angelic energy. And I think as people, what we try to do is we try to put things into neat little categories, and we try to like organize things, and at the end of the day, it's all just energy. And so yes, angels feel different from spirit guides, but and some angels feel different from other angels and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's all just angelic energy, and I don't think that you have to get really specific. Some people feel this need to say, oh, I need to ask the correct angel to help me with this specific situation. So let's say we're wanting to feel safe and protected, you would call on Archangel Michael to help you with that. However, I personally believe in my own experience that it's just as effective to say, angels, please help me to feel safe and protected. So this is where it's like a cheat code to the angels. You don't have to know all of their functions or who they are or their name or anything about them. You don't have to see them. You just have to ask for help, and it can be very general, and you can have some really powerful experiences still with the angels through doing it just in that way. But there are, if you decide you want to dive in and learn more about angels, there are specific angels that help with specific things. Again, I used to care more about that, but the angels have kind of shown me we're just energy. You don't really need to call on a specific angel or to know all these angels or to know what our names are or any of that stuff. You can if you'd like to, but it's just not really that important in the grand scheme of things. So something to consider. Angels are just energy, like I said, so they technically do not have a human form, but they will show themselves to us in the way that is most comfortable for us. So, when I was, maybe I shared this story on here, I can't remember, but I'll share it. I was, I had known, had my own experiences with angels when I was younger, but got really, really scared about seeing one again, because I had read the Sylvia Brown book, and she was talking about how angels are absolutely huge and faceless, and to me that sounded terrifying. That did not sound like peace and love and light, and so I didn't see angels for quite some time because I was blocking that. I was saying, I don't want to see that, because right, you're in charge of your gift. And then somebody said to me, why don't you just ask them to have faces? And it was like a light bulb went off, and I thought, oh yeah, I could set that intention. I'm in charge of my gift. And so I did. And almost immediately is when I started to reconnect with angels again and started to see angels again with people. And you know what? They all had faces for me. And I enjoy that, because a lot of them are incredibly good-looking men angels as well. So why not have them look beautiful, right? But your angels can show up in whatever way feels comforting and good for you. And so it's going to be a little bit different for everybody. Some of the angels might show up with sparkles or flashes of color, different things. You might see an orb coming in, which would be a little, I know a lot of you have commented on my videos that you see orbs flying around. So it might just be like a little quick flash of light or a slow moving ball that moves through there. You might catch it on your camera. You might catch it. The digital photography has been developed to this level, and part of the reason is to help us to see orbs, so that we can see our spirit guides, so that we can see our angels and recognize them. So that's why we get so many of them showing up in pictures, since we have transitioned over to digital technology. So that's really, really a cool thing. And so don't doubt that if you see orbs in your pictures and things like that, or even it can look a little cloudy sometimes when they're coming through. I've had a client bring me a picture of an actual what appeared to be the shape of an angel, but it was like this cloudy energy standing by her bed. It was a really cool, amazing picture. But again, like if that scares you, you can say, please don't show up in a cloudy form and stand above my bed. That sounds terrifying, you know? Please show up as an orb. Please show up as light. Please show up as a sparkle out of the corner of my eye. That's how a lot of people see angels, as like glitter out of the corner of your eye. And you can ask yourself, is that my eyeshadow, or did I really just see an angel? And you can explore that. And so invite them to show up for you. Look for them. Start to pay attention. And this is how we can begin to connect with angels on a deeper level. It's really, really cool. If you are somebody who tends to feel energy, which I think all of you are on some level, ask them to show you what they feel like, and then when you feel them around, ask them, okay, I feel you, so what is it that you're wanting? What is it? What messages am I supposed to get? And exploring that just to see what answers you get with that, and what shows up for you. I want to talk about angels in human form, because this is powerful and this is important too. So angels can also show up in human form, and a lot of times they will incarnate as a person, and maybe not just for an entire life, but they'll just step in, or they will take over a person for a period of time just to make sure that we are safe or taken care of, or that we get a message. I know that I have an angel that I see around town here and there, and on several occasions she has come and knocked on my car window, or just run into me at the grocery store, or rode by me on a bike, a lighted bike with flags waving to me at 11:30 at night outside of a bar. I mean, like, this woman just shows up in so many places, and she always shows up at a time that I need it, or to deliver. She will just say exactly the words that I need to hear in that moment. And so I've met her. I've met other people that have very much felt like, wow, I just had a conversation with an angel, and you walk away from that really blown away. So we can have these conversations with these angels incarnate, and they can show up in human form and really step in and help us. I mean, how many stories have we heard about people being in, for example, a car accident, and that helpful stranger, they a lot of times will show up as a helpful stranger who showed up, did the work, took care of stuff, and then just disappeared, or they weren't able to contact this person after that, or whatever. These are examples of angels incarnate. Have you guys ever had an experience of an angel existing or interacting with you? Have you ever had that experience where you felt like it was somebody who was an angel incarnate? Because that's a really, really cool thing to experience when you have it. And if you haven't experienced it, ask for that experience, because I don't know, like that, talk about deepening your faith. That'll deepen your faith real fast when you walk away from an interaction like, wow, that was an angel. And that was a really powerful moment for me in my life. So very, very powerful. Let's talk about spirit guides a little bit. I know that I'm going through this kind of fast, but it's a lot of information, and there is the handouts that I will post, but I also think I just want you guys to get an overview of this, because again, as human beings, we tend to try to like break stuff down into categories, and it needs to be this and it needs to be that. And what I've learned over time is that it doesn't really fit into these neat little categories. So what I've done with the guide stuff, and you'll see it in here, is it is kind of broken into categories, and there's different types of guides and all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all just energy, and I'm constantly adapting these categories because I feel like, maybe that wasn't quite correct. So like I was saying earlier, take what speaks to you, leave the rest. Take what connects for you, leave the rest. And your experience with your guides might be a completely different experience than the things that I'm sharing. So base it on your experiences with it and your interactions with your guides if you have connected to them. So there are many types of guides that we have, and again, this is just energy, so they don't necessarily fit into neat categories like I'm putting them into. We are never sent to navigate this life alone. They are part of our spirit team. Now, spirit guides, in my experience and an opinion, do have some level of ego. Spirit guides oftentimes have lived and experienced several lives here on this earth, and that's like they're kind of they've had a lot of experience, they've learned a lot of things, and they sign up to help guide us. So they usually have a lot of wisdom and have experienced a lot of lives and a lot of difficult lives, so that they can help us to navigate these lives that we've had. So we make these arrangements with these spirit guides that they will help to guide us. But because they have lived on earth, because they have had some of these experiences, I find that spirit guides do have a little bit more of an ego. Like, I feel like with angels, you could say anything you want, and you want to be respectful, of course, just because that's good vibes and good energy, but you could say anything you want and your angels will always stick around. I don't believe that to be true with guides. I have seen situations where people have gotten themselves into such a dark, deep place that their guides have disconnected, and have kind of signed off on that life until they are invited back. Or, I think that we want to approach our guides, also our angels, but our guides really like to be approached with respect. And if we're not being respectful, if we're not honoring that as we would any relationship in our life, that our guides can get upset sometimes, that can, and I don't think that they have the same level of ego that we have as human beings. I don't think it's like that, but they have some ego in my experience. I don't know if that's picking up on the microphone, but I can hear guides right now, like just kind of like conversations going on, sort of. Let me just see if there's a message here. They're just talking about making sure that you guys aren't so worried about connecting with your guides in any kind of real way. Like, it doesn't have to be that you have this direct connection, this direct interaction with your guides. You guys are already connecting with your guides without realizing it, and it's coming through. We talked about in week 1 how we connect through the clairs. This is how we connect with our guides. So they're saying, like, don't be so in need of defining how that interaction looks or what it looks like. You probably aren't going to see your guides like you see me, like in physical form. You probably aren't even going to see your guides in your mind's eye in any kind of consistent way, because they're just energy. But sometimes they will show up in person form. But what they do, is they're only going to use as much energy as is needed. So I used to see my guides, and they would have, in my meditations, a physical form. But since I work with them so closely now, and I know them so well, they tend to just show up as energy, and I just tend to feel what they feel like and know who's there with me. So I don't necessarily need to see them anymore. And because I don't need to see them anymore, I don't, typically, unless there's something that they're trying to communicate with me or connect with me. How can we, they're always there as a support for us, but how can we increase that? How can we get our guides to really, how can we bump it up? Acknowledging that they exist and making efforts to connect with them. You can ask, would you tell me your name, and just see if any names pop up for you here and there. Would you show me what you feel like? Will you help me with this? And having regular communication and interaction with them, even if you don't necessarily feel like you're getting the answers right away, is a really great way to help with them. Ask for help, ask for signs, and notice signs. We talked about your magic log, your magic book. I hope you guys are keeping that. Every time that you write in that book, every time you acknowledge a sign that they have sent your way, you are deepening your connection with your guides, and they're happy to do it. And it's kind of like giving them a sticker, I'm really motivated by stickers. I feel like I talk about it a lot, but if somebody gives you a good job sticker, right? You're kind of, every time you acknowledge something that they do for you, it's like giving them a good job sticker, and guys like good job stickers too. So allowing that, allowing yourself to be thankful and grateful and to treat them with a lot of respect is really important. Try to follow and honor their guidance. If you're getting all these signs that you shouldn't do something, you probably shouldn't do something. The more that you are flowing with your intuition and listening to what that intuitive voice is, the more you are deepening that connection with your spirit guides. And that's really important. they're less likely to offer guidance if you are repeatedly ignoring that. And it can, not that you can't build that relationship back, but the more you're ignoring it, they're kind of like, okay, well, we're trying, but it doesn't seem to be getting through, or you don't seem to be willing or ready to listen to that at this particular time. So they will sort of take a step back in my experience and not help as much with that. And it's not because they don't love us, it's just because we have free will and they are trying to support that free will. And so you want to make sure that you're listening and that you're honoring that. And sometimes we have to learn lessons the hard way, and that sucks. But and I'm sure that they sit back kind of cringing a little bit. But sometimes we have to learn it that way too. But inviting them back, if you feel like your guides have disconnected and stepped away just a little bit, inviting them, telling them that you're going to develop a working relationship with them is important. Making efforts to connect with them. And it doesn't have to be that you're like, I'm going to do this meditation and I'm going to see my guides and this is how I'm going to connect. No, all of these things that I've already talked about are ways that we can connect with your guides. Just simply choosing to meditate with no intention of connecting with your guides is a way for you to connect with your guides. So sometimes I found that actually I try to connect with my guides, no, I'm trying to remember the time period. It was maybe like 6 months or something, and I would do a meditation every day. I got actually obsessive about it when I was trying to connect and see my guides. I had seen angels, but not guides. And so as I'm trying to do that, it wasn't happening, and so I started to change my intention, and I started to just be like, all right, I guess this isn't happening for me, and I started to focus on something else. And sometimes when we are so focused on something, we're actually blocking the manifestation of that. So if we can step away from it a little bit, it helps to release the energy. And so that's exactly what happened for me. Once I did that, and once I released some of the expectations that I had of how it was supposed to be, because that's really big, is to release expectations here and to not have an expectation of what your experience will be with your guides. Once I did all that, then I started to connect pretty consistently and regularly with them. So making sure that you let expectation go. It doesn't have to be a specific way. It doesn't have to be a specific experience. I can remember my former business partner, Nicole, when we were first both exploring our spirituality, she connected with her guides so strongly that she was like, yeah, my spirit guide, I could see it like a movie, and he was pulling down the screen and he was showing me this image and that, and I saw Jesus in my meditation, and I was like, I just kind of feel relaxed, and I felt like I was maybe doing it wrong and that I wasn't connected. And what I kind of had to come to the conclusion was that everybody experiences it differently. And as I started to have conversations with other people, they were experiencing it a little bit more like me, but now I feel much more connected with that. But you don't want to base your story off of my story. We all connect to the angels, to guides, to everything, to the universe in our own unique way. And anytime that you can release expectation, you're releasing one of the blocks that might be preventing you from connecting. We experience our guides through the 5 clairs like we talked about in the first class. So through those 5 senses that we talked about. And there are many, many types of guides. And I'm not going to dive too much into these because I am including these in the handouts. But and I really have stepped away from subscribing to this idea that this guide helps with this and this guide helps with that. I do have a guide that I feel like is a protector guide for me, so that is one category of guides. I feel like his only job is to help keep me safe and protected, and he shows up as, he looks like Mr. Clean a little bit, like this huge, big Mr. Clean guy. And I feel this beautiful, protective, wonderful, loving energy from him. It's really, I love connecting with his energy. And I have another guide that I call my joy guide. She's here. She's my primary guide, I think. She's the guide that I connect the most with, that shows up the most, that is in my life the most and in my meditations the most, and I feel her the most. And I call her my joy guide because I believe that she's here to help me to live my most joyful life and my most connected life. So there are different categories like that, but I kind of just believe that she helps with everything in my life. And so it's not just joy, but that was just, I put her into that category because when I was learning about spirit guides, that was what I learned. And so you can choose to adopt some of these categories that you'll find in the handouts or not, but what really matters is the connection and what you're feeling and what you believe coming through with this. There's, guides that help us to focus on, they just help with a specific topic, a work guide. Sometimes cross loved ones can be guides for us. So my grandfather died when I was relatively young, and he has come in as a work guide. And I don't logically understand the why of it because he didn't do work like this. But he has been very present through my childhood in my dreams, and now in my meditations, and on this journey of connecting me with my spirituality and connecting me as a spiritual leader and connecting with my intuition. He's been there every step of the way supporting that. So he's just kind of become a work guide. So there are some guides that are just help you to focus on one thing. Maybe you have a relationship guide that helps you to, that just assists with your relationship because maybe they have some specific skill or some specific energy that helps with that, or they're just kind of more, it's kind of like when you go to the doctors, they have regular doctors and then they have specialists. These are kind of the specialists, and you might have different ones like that. A doctor guide maybe designed to help you with your health and your well-being. But again, you don't need to know these categories or even need to subscribe to that because sometimes I see them being as specific like that, and sometimes I don't. So it's really what you experience and what shows up, and I would prefer that you just release expectations around that and you just let it be whatever it is that's showing up for you. Of course, you want to set the intention that these connections, that these guides that you are connecting with are high-level guides, high vibrational guides that are of the light, because we can connect with guides that are not really guides that are, guides that come from a negative space. So you do want to continue to set your intentions with things. But beyond that, having expectation is going to block you. So just letting that be whatever it's going to be. Let's see. I'm just looking at this paper and I think everything I've kind of touched on a little bit, and the other stuff sort of explains itself. But we do have, in my experience, magical guides as well. So these are things like fairies, unicorns, gnomes, those kind of things. Sometimes I see those with people, and I have seen with my physical eye elementals, what I call elementals, nature spirits, fairies, gnomes, those kinds of things. They are actually a little bit easier to see, in my opinion, than angels. And I think we see them a lot and we just think it's a butterfly or a dragonfly or an animal. Or I remember seeing one nature spirit that had hair that was like a chipmunk, and she kind of just appeared to be a chipmunk until I realized that the front of her was a little tiny person. And I've experienced all kinds of elementals and nature spirits. They all look different. Some of them look like little people, some of them look like things that I don't even know how to describe. But they're only the next dimension up, so they're a little bit easier to see. They are the angels of the earth, the protectors of the earth, and that's what they are here to do. But they oftentimes will help us, or sometimes we have nature spirits that are a part of our spirit team as well. So that can be kind of cool when we have those experiences, and we can invite them to show up for us as well. But that is a whole big topic, nature spirits, so I'm not going to dive into that too deeply with that. So let me know, guys, what questions you have, what's coming up for you, where you're at here in week 5. Is there anything specific you'd like for me to include or focus on for our last week and our next week, week 6, or where are you stuck? What are you still needing? Let me know so that we can help you to continue to grow and develop and level up in your life. So thank you guys. I will see you guys next week with our next class. Thank you. Bye.